All right, it's Alexander Lawrence, the Portable Infinite. We're doing a ton of interviews this month. It was like a 6 month hiatus. Now we're got like three interviews up in a row. And so today we're celebrating Zeitgeist Press. They're a very important publisher, started in San Francisco in '86. They've kind of City Lights have put out some kind of interesting books in the last couple of years. Manic D was there, but Zeitgeist seems to really like cover the scene. I mean, they were kind of an accurate kind of the last almost it's getting up to 40 years. Is it 40 years now, Bruce?
God, it is. Well, almost 40 years. It'll be our first book came out in 87. So,
And I have a long history with Bruce because I saw him. I remember I saw him read with La Loca at Cody's books back in about '89 or '90. I went and took the Bart over there, and
yeah.
La Loca. I don't know where she's at. And
She
then,
passed away. I think she had cancer, didn't she?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. She was kind of sick, so she's dead. Okay, so yeah, I never
Yeah.
ran into her again. So
Young, way young, I think in the early 90s or
yeah,
so.
her name was like Pamela something.
Yeah, Pamela, I can't remember right now.
And Bruce was in New York studying with Ginsberg. So I just happened to be living on Park Slope, and Bruce's class read in the little cabana in Park Slope, like right across the street from where I was living. And so I went over there, and that's when you had like long black hair, like back then.
I did. Yeah.
And then, of course, I've seen him at Babar, and he's done many readings, and now he's in Las Vegas.
We
And
knew each other at Babar, and yeah, I've
yeah,
been in Las Vegas since 95.
so he's
We
been.
have an active scene here too, and Zeitgeist is active here.
Yeah, they got the new. They continue to I don't know. San Francisco doesn't seem like it has a cohesive scene. I mean, it's a lot of academics and people, and some of the old people are
Well,
gone.
a big scene coalesced around Dave Eggers,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I never knew him, but that was a big
No,
important scene. And I'm in touch again with Michelle T, who was in
she's
both of those scenes.
yeah, but she's part of. She lives in L.A. and
Now, yeah,
yeah, Dave Eggers was kind of like my scene, like because he was that's who was the editor of Cups magazine when me and Stolmar joined Dave. That's why I met Dave. Met
I
Dave.
never knew he was involved, but I loved his book, a heartbreaking,
Yeah,
his debut book, a heartbreaking work of staggering genius. I think it
yeah,
was, but it was
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
good
I,
writing.
I mean, I think that's. I mean, that was. I mean, I guess San Francisco's kind of a free for all, and people. It's always been kind of a carpetbagger thing, but
Well, the beach scene is still there. The North Beach poets are there are still poets there.
it's barely there. It's barely there.
Uh, it's a new generation,
It,
but like I was in touch with Neely Cherkovsky before he died, and he was central to it. And Jack Hirschman has several, at least one widow and one person, and Sarah is still there. Uh,
there's a
and
lot. There's a lot of widows and best
but it's
friends.
an important scene, and it is still happening. And I read with Paul Corman Roberts in the Bay Area, and I heard him read in North Beach and get a huge crowd at bars and stuff. So
So, what was the original vision for Zeitgeist Press? You co-founded it in '86. What? Let me ask you that. We kind of skirted around the issue. I mean, what did you originally think it was going to be, and how has it developed into the Las Vegas Zeitgeist Press?
so what Zeitgeist Press started as the kind of the first. It wasn't really the first, but we started to publish work out of the Cafe Babar community or scene that hadn't been published. We had a lot of urban, gritty poets who were, unacknowledged. The reading, which had been going on Thursday nights from since the time of Bob Kaufman and the Coffee Gallery in North Beach, had by that time migrated to the Mission. And that's when it came to the Cafe Babar in 1985 with Joey Cook was, I think, showed up at a reading at the Meat Market Cafe, if I remember right. And the doors were locked and closed, and we all went to the Cafe Babar, and the reading went on there for 10 plus years. And the Zeitgeist started as the house press for that reading. There were other presses there, hydraulic press, Don Gross, who I lost track of, and I saw his name in your book, and that you probably are in touch with him. But anyhow, we just wanted to publish that work by those people, and we did a first round of 5 or 6 books. This is before print on demand. So in order to publish a book, somebody had to put up thousands of dollars, and we got that press off the ground, and it has been. David Lerner and I were really the founding principals. I was the functional doer of things. Lerner was a visionary, but not necessarily a doer of things with his own hands. But so that was it. And then over time, I moved in '95. I came to Las Vegas originally for just trying to keep myself alive work-wise. And I took a job here, and then I was divorced. I had a son and was divorced here and was subject to the Nevada courts and was never able to come back. But I did keep my contact, and Zeitgeist continued to publish in the Bay Area, and we published a couple poets in the early aughts in Las Vegas, and really now in the last 10 years, we've accelerated publishing in Las Vegas, and I have young Vegas poets who are going to take it over when my time is totally done, and they're doing books now and using the imprint. It's always been a co-op. That's been the vision. It's a cooperative. So
Yeah, why I mentioned Don Gross, he lives in New Mexico now. He's like building his own. There's some YouTube. I guess it's called Utopian Cow. There's some YouTube of him. He bought like a few acres of land in New Mexico near Albuquerque, and he's building a whole house for
good for
himself.
him.
And
Did he
so
keep publishing at all, or
no,
is
not
he?
really. No, he was teaching. He was teaching all in up in Washington State for a while. He was I mean, he did go to New York and do some theater, and then there was about 20 years of being a high school teacher, and then now
Yeah, I
he's kind of like
remember.
this survivalist guy.
He published that first book by Danielle
Yeah.
Willis, Corpse Delectable, which at the authors with the author's permission and insistence, we reissued in the '90s sometime, and it's an important book.
Yeah, and Don, I thank Don because he was like somebody from my own, like not my own neighborhood that kind of did something, and he introduced me to you and Danielle, and it was
Yeah.
like I got me excited. I go, God, I got to move to San. There wasn't really anything going on in LA at the time. I mean, there was Beyond Baroque and a
Oh,
few
yeah.
things.
Beyond Baroque has gone continuously, and there was some stuff, some
I,
leftovers in those years in Venice Beach, and then we got all involved in Helena's and that group that did. Go ahead. That group that did that. They called themselves They published a book, and they called themselves They had movie stars reading poetry. We read
yeah,
with.
yeah, there was Helena's and then Karma Bombs. I mean, there was. I read a few times at the a Pick Me Up Cafe, and there was stuff in Long Beach, and I did go to Long Beach State, and there was Gerald Laughlin and some other people there.
You did events there that we came down for, and then they were fun. They were really fun and good, you know.
But San Francisco was a little bit at the time in the '80s, late '80s. It was a little bit more concentrated there, and I think by '89 or '90, there was almost. I think there was like 2 or 3 open poetry readings per day, so you could pretty much go to every reading. You can go to the bar, Paradise Lounge, or the Chameleon, the Blue Monkey. A few.
San Francisco wasn't diffused through sprawl like LA is, you know,
Yeah.
just geographically, and people spread out in LA. In San Francisco, everybody's, on top of each other. And, the poetry scenes were really mostly in the Mission in those years, and the Mission and the adjacent to it, the gay community in the why can't I think of the name?
Well, the clean, well lighted place and Clubstitute, and there was like different things going on.
Those are all in the mission, I think. But
Yeah.
what do they call it? I have it in this book. I know I can't, but the Castro in the
Oh,
Castro,
oh, right,
there was
right.
really a lot of creative energy happening in the Castro.
Well, getting back to Zeitgeist Press, I mean, I have some of their like books that you gave me in the early days. I have like the David Lerner, I Want a New Gun. I think that was like among your
That's
first.
been reissued in a red cover. It's still available.
Yeah, it
Uh,
has a little
and
picture of David there. Like, but this, I think,
a little back so they can see it because that's visible. Turn it over. Yeah, there you go. There's a good. Yeah, then the cover looks the same except we used a red background.
and this is one of the original, I think, 5 books that you published. I think. Isn't it?
The first 5 books there was one of my own, Bad Dog Blues, that book, Julia Vinograd's Horn of Empty, I think, Bana Witt, Compass in an Armored Car, and why can't I think
Yeah.
of the last one?
Well, Eli Coppola or
Eli was the 6th book. What does
okay.
it say on the back on the Zeitgeist page in that book?
Oh, right, right.
Have them listed, and there's because I'm missing one in
Let's
my.
see, Bad Dog Blues, Bana Witt, Julia Vinograd. That's it.
Oh, that's it. So it was just
Maybe a Joey Cook.
maybe I got the number. Maybe it was 4, and then the 5th one maybe was Eli Coppola.
What
Yes.
was Jack Michelin pretty early too, or
Well, Jack Michelin was after, but
okay?
close on, and still in the 80s. And we did 2 chapbooks by Jack, and then I did, which I'm really really quite proud of. And then we did a few years ago, edited by San Francisco poet William Taylor Jr., who's quite a good poet and came along afterwards, but quite a good poet. We did Cocky Moon, Jack Michelin's.
Oh,
This is
wow.
a selected works of Jack Michelin's of the poems that he was famous for in that era. And those of us who you were there, so those of us who were there, just remember he was a gruff but magnetic presence for poetry, talking about get up on the pool tables and recite your poems. And he was really something, and he was a bard. There hasn't been an American poet like him, certainly since. And but he was unique and important, and we miss him, Jack Michelin.
And I have David Lerner, Why Rimbaud Went to Africa.
And we just reissued that book's been out of print. We did Last 5 Miles to Grace when he died, which was his selected works of Why Rimbaud, that one, and Pray Like the Hunted. And that was a selected works plus some new poems. And then we reissued this book.
Yeah, I think that
But
looks nicer. I think. Yeah, that looks good.
well, it's the same book. It's the same text. It's got an afterword by James Norman, who is one of the guys he's a 40-ish poet who's going to take Zeitgeist over, and he's done a dozen books on Zeitgeist already, not just his books and those of other poets. And then the big one, which
Yeah.
is important to me, is A Bouquet of Nails. And I edited this book personally. That's a
All
Debbie
right.
Vinograd
Oh,
draw a painting of him, and it's 350 pages of the poems that he lugged through his life before he died of an overdose in
yeah.
1997.
I also have a book, American Book of the Dead. Here, this is
That's
published.
reprinted in there. You've got God. That's amazing. You're a collector because those
Well,
are
no,
very
no,
rare.
I lost a lot. I mean, I have some David. I have some Joey Cook because Joey Cook sent me some books before she died. So I still have a bunch of hers, and for some reason, because I moved from San Francisco to New York and then back to LA, that I lost a lot of books in the shift. I did have like a collection of poetry, but somebody. It got tossed or something.
Yeah,
But
it
David
happened.
Lerner, it won't go away. I still have it like 30 years later.
It's a rare book. So hang on, Steve. The guy who first printed that in a limited edition, Steve Parr, and Steve
Oh,
Parr
right.
passed
He's not
away.
he passed away. Yeah, I
He
knew him.
passed away. Oddball Productions, I think it.
Yeah, he did. He also real early on did like some. I have some flyers for some of the readings he did. He did like
He
he
did that reading at the, what was the name of that
it was
place?
it
Oh,
was on, it was on Market somewhere.
Elbows Akimbo was the name of the place at 17th and Mission, but that wasn't what he called his reading. I can't remember what he, but it was a great reading,
Yeah, he did a reading. He did like a big flyer for it, and it was like it would
Yeah.
usually
We do it
it,
it was once a month or
there'd be
every
like
second
two
Friday.
poets. Yeah, there'd be two
Yeah.
each. I think Bucky, yourself, Dave.
Yeah, Bucky's still going. I understand.
So
And
yeah, we have the David Lerner book right here. Let's see, they're up
you
here.
know, the thing about this book, I was rereading it kind of just in preparation for this. And the thing about this book is that during his life, the material that Lerner published was that kind of sort of Henny Youngman caustic wit, really smart and funny, and you'd laugh and he would draw you in, but highly, not just critical, but a highly jaundiced and skeptical view of American culture, but right on, you know, anti-establishment. You could feel it right in, just like the red diaper baby that he was. But this book really gives you insight into who he was and what he was coping with, because he was coping with bipolar disorder, you know, lack of money, with being he had a back injury which got him addicted to opiates, and he was through the end of his life, especially in and out of heroin, and that's what he eventually died from. And the story of his life and of his romance with the poet Maura O'Connor is poignant and beautiful. How hard they struggled trying to make, a decent life, coping with all of the that was against them.
Yeah, so this first book, Steel Butterfly, what era is that from? Because I recognize some of the poems. And
Yeah, that was from the early, at least the early 90s, the poem Steel Butterfly, which
okay,
I really, that's one of the poems. But the poems kind of go in and out. He's got this one about on the selection of Robert Haas as poet laureate, which I sort of
yeah, yeah,
regard.
yeah. I remember him reading that. Some of the American Book of the Dead's in here,
It is.
but
We put
you don't
that
have.
in its own just because we wanted it to remain in print. And then he
Oh,
also had Furious Children, which was widely circulated. And those are the only two things in this book of 350 pages that had been previously
so,
that have been
so the others, like
widely published.
another Zeitgeist, those books I showed before aren't in this book.
Everything else is not in the, that's
Oh,
correct.
okay.
No, that's right. This is not like a selected works.
Uh,
This is to complete out. You need those and the books you showed before, and there's a couple of poems also in the last 5 miles to Grace, which is his selected works that and these books, I want to tell you, have continued to sell at a good clip throughout. We only sell, we're not distributed. We only sell off our website, but these books have continued to sell. They've accelerated since his passing and are still accelerating,
so,
really.
so everyone that listens to this, I mean, I'll put a link to Zeitgeist Press in the description here, and you should definitely go buy, a lot of the new books and check it out. Buy 5 or 10 books, and give some Christmas gifts to everyone. Buy this book, purposely wrong, and buy 5 copies
Purposefully
of
wrong, right? There we
Purposely
go.
Wrong by Bruce Isaacson, and give 5 copies to your mother and stuff. And, definitely get. We'll have a link to that. But so this is a lot of unpublished stuff that's been sitting around.
Yes, it had been on. It's not sitting. It wasn't sitting around. I just gonna tell you, like, I went through over 1,200 pages of manuscript material that was given to me by the so-called Lyman family, the Fort Hill group out of L.A. If you might know them because they're L.A., Boston, and also New York, and they're important people in the publishing world, and they supported Zeitgeist Press. They knew and supported Lerner. I never knew them until after he passed. But when he passed, they went up to his room in San Francisco, which was just, a tenement apartment. It was, an SSI apartment, and they recovered all the materials he had there. There was a lot that was not recovered. He supposedly finished a novel and had that on was on tape and on a system that he sold or got rid of at the end of his life, for drugs. And the novel is entirely lost. But they saved about 1,500 pages of correspondence, poems, and this stuff, it's poignant because he had been lugging it through his life, all these huge piles of manuscripts and stuff, and they were found in his room at the time that he died. And from that, we took what we thought were the most powerful works and put them in a bouquet of nails. And I think it gives you a view of what it was like to, be struggling with all those problems and living in SSI apartments, and yet knowing and believing as he did that he was doing something really important in American poetry.
Where was he living towards the end there? Was it in?
Was in the Tenderloin.
Okay.
He and Mora, God, there's a poem in here that's so poignant called Undertow, about living in the Tenderloin. It's one of the last poems in the book. And it's about how he lost, essentially the story of how he lost everything. And then he went into rehab. He went right from writing that poem, and he went into rehab. And then for a week or 10 days, and he got his tolerance down, and then he checked himself out of rehab and essentially OD and killed himself. And Maura found him. She never recovered. She is still a ward of the state in California, in Ojai, and she found him with the work still in his arm. And she published I don't know if you know her work too, but
Yeah.
I'll send you one. She published a great book about living on the underside, like in the undertow of American society, living in SSI apartments in the Tenderloin, trying to live on the amount that was allocated to them for SSI, and having losing their job, getting her job, losing her job, living through the AIDS crisis. I'll send you one of those. How about that? The Maura O'Connor book.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah, so I mean, you kind of kept it together all these years. Like, I mean, it's 40 years now, and I mean, you were able to keep this press going and creating a venue for. I mean, a lot of these people that are we've talked. I mean, Dominic Lowell's not with us. Eli Coppola died a long time ago. Other people are in the hospital. They're sick. I mean, these aren't the most well-adjusted. I mean,
A
people.
couple of a couple of differences there. So one of the reasons I've made it to this point, at least, and I just want to say this, even though I was close to the people and I have a lot of the same, perhaps bipolar tendencies and such, um, I was never a drug addict. Okay, so that's if you want to live, don't become a drug addict. That's
Well,
it's a piece of advice.
Bruce, I know you a long time. You're very level-headed. You've kept it together. I mean, you should be proud of yourself. I mean, you kept it going.
Eli was not a drug addict, but Eli
Uh,
had muscular
yeah,
dystrophy.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he died young of that, and she really wrote beautifully, and I mean, you mentioned Dominique Lowell. Dominique Lowell wrote beautifully, but I can't find her work. Nobody's done a beautiful selected works of, all the things. I have recordings of her, and we
Yeah.
have tapes of readings. I have 1,000 hours of tapes from that period, which we are documenting with the help of James Norman and Raymond Foy and some of these people
Yeah,
who know how important it is. And I have great tapes of Dominique Wright, but she wasn't like an on the, she didn't produce a beautiful book like yours. I mean, I'm really enjoying this, and the history that you cite in the back. Actually, the most one of the most important things in this book is, the afterward. And I really appreciate the history that's there. And because, it's important for those of us who are left, it's up to us to document the history of the era of the arts in our times. It's
Yeah,
important.
well, yeah, the way I see it, and yeah, I was pretty much. I mean, I was lucky because I ran into Brian, who I went to college with, and 2 or 3 years ago, and he had started a real small press, and I go, well, I have a book of poems I could put together in like 2 months, and we can, and
That's a beautiful book. Is that his press? I don't know
yeah,
who
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
folks with Big Arts.
yeah, Brian Jacobs from yeah, he lives in Michigan now, but yeah, there was this guy, he had a designer from Hong Kong, and I
He
worked
did a great job on this book. This is beautifully done, and it's
yeah, yeah, it came
a
out.
serious book.
Yeah, and he has a whole I mean it was a I mean now there's like all these like small presses. I mean they don't have the PGW. Maybe they do. I don't know. Everyone's like on that one. I forgot what that one is called. That one
Which one?
there's a distributor that everybody's on. I'd have to look it up.
Oh, well, Ingram. He's got Ingram. He's going through. He's printing and doing stuff through Ingram content,
Yeah.
and then but small press traffic went out of business. Just went out of
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
They just went out of business. They folded. So, I have stopped using distributors for Zeitgeist Press, and I'll tell you why. Because and I made a big push with small press traffic a few years ago. Hey, let me send you some books to distribute and blah blah blah. And I guess maybe somebody on their board didn't like us and didn't, we've done 170 books and I couldn't get them to say yes and distribute it. And just as well, because I'm going from book people to, there are 5 distributors. I've sent them piles of books and then and sold some limited books, and you get some percentage payment. And then 2 years later, I get a notice from the receiver telling me that if I pay him more than the gross value of the books, he'll ship them back to me. you
Yeah.
know they just the distributors have just consistently gone out of business. So we have done. Now I don't think that's true of like Publishers Group West, and so I don't think they're on the edge of going out of business and such that distributes Manic D. But all of the midterm distributors, Ingram went once, and now they're back at it again, doing it again. I lost a pile of books to Ingram in the. So I just feel like we sell off our website. We do provide bookstore discounts, but we don't finance them, it's payment on receipt of the books.
Oh, that distributor is called Asterix. That's what a lot of people are using.
Oh, Asterix. Okay, I don't
Uh,
know them.
I'll send
So
you the link, but let's get back.
yeah,
I mean, you have a great book out right now. I mean, your
thank you.
poetry's been pretty solid. I mean, all the way from what was it, the Cafe Death,
That
and
was my first book. Yes,
and
Cafe Death.
Bad Dog Blues, and you had a poem. We had one poem that I was kind of a character in, where we went to Long Beach, and there was that car accident on
Yes,
the. and
yes, that's a really, yeah, poetry in Orange County, it's
yeah,
called.
poor,
Then the car accident happened. We're all out there yelling at each other about it, and then all of a sudden somebody,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was like a very LA
That
thing.
happened. You remember that event.
Yeah, I was there, and
Yeah.
I sent you a few pictures of that. But like, how did you get into poetry? How did Bruce get into writing? And how do you see your? I mean, I kind of in that introduction or afterward, I kind of mapped out my kind of like my heroes and my introduction, my kind of lineage. What were your influences, and what did you see? What you're
Well, as a child, really, it really started my reading in poetry really started with Edgar Allan Poe. And my mom bought me a beautiful illustrated edition, and I can still remember not just The Raven, but For Annie and The Bells. And there was a beautiful illustrated edition which I've never been able. able to find that influenced me greatly. And they also had a great books library, and I started reading T.S. Eliot's collected poems, and the Hollow Men grabbed me. And also in school, I took an oral interpretation class, and I was deeply I started doing stuff by Steinbeck. My family were people who fell out of the hills of West Virginia and came across in those years, came across in jalopies in those years. And that really not only influenced me, but I started doing oral interp. I started speaking the work out loud, and Hemingway got me. And then basically, I have a story about it right now and about Danielle and Julia. And basically, I had loved and had the inclination. I was writing all the way through graduate school, although I didn't know I was writing poetry, just pinning this stuff on my door. I think it cost me career opportunities, which are just as well, and that I didn't pursue some of these like things that later brought down the entire American system. But at a reading, I got up and read something, a poem for when my grandfather had passed away, and Julia Vinograd sort of glumped over to me, and oh, I liked your poem, and she'd look away at you like this. Oh, I liked your poem, and then she'd look at you, and she was already famous. She had just had a big piece in her that weekend in the literary section of the San Francisco Chronicle. And we started meeting in the Med, and she started teaching me, and I started going, and I had been 8 years since I'd had a lover, and I was 20, I was 30, I was 28 years old or something, it was ridiculous. It was inhuman, I was an incel, and she started getting into the scene in the community, and I met Joey Cook, and she introduced me to Danielle Willis, and she introduced me to the whole community of North Beach poets who made fun of me and were, found me sort of laughable, but maybe not without reason, because, it took me years to begin to understand not only what they were about and what the tradition represented, but also what I was about. And I feel like I want to be about, expressing something that transcends those, now I'm a broad reader. I published a novel. I published, 8 or 10 full-length books of poetry. And I do a lot of different styles and a lot of different things. And hopefully it's my talisman for not making to do something better than making a mess of my life.
So you got into the poetry business to meet some girls. That's good. I like
I
that.
think that's yeah, I did definitely. I think a lot of us did.
Well,
And go
that's
ahead.
good. That's good. Yeah, I like that.
Well, that's what happened. And, I was reading and I thought, oh, look at this. Alexander married that Laura Markley. And I
Oh no!
remember,
Oh no! 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 No!
oh,
We
you
never
didn't
got
marry
married.
her, you just went out with her, right?
We went out for a long time. Yes.
But she was one of the prettiest, nicest girls
Yeah. Yeah. I got
I remember
lucky.
from
I
the
got
scene.
lucky. I got lucky. I plucked her out of. Yeah. I kind of want. I really wanted to go out with Zoe Rosenfeld, but she was like Laura Markley was the plan B,
What
and
happened to Zoe Rosenfeld? Do you
she
know?
ended up in New York, and I
I
think
know she went to New York,
she
but
was living.
she's in the Babar anthology.
She was
That
living in the same building as Jennifer Blowdryer over there on Second and Beeve. They had a part.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes,
I've been there a lot of times, and I didn't know that Zoe Rosenfeld was there.
yeah, she was there. Well, she moved there the same
A
time I
good
did.
writer, Zoe Rosenfeld.
Yeah, yeah.
A good writer.
I think she came out with a prose poetry book that you can get on Amazon, but eventually. But I think she's married. She had a kid. She was living. I think she still has that place on Second and B with Jennifer Blowdryer as her neighbor, and she worked at the New Yorker magazine for a while. Like
Oh, I didn't know that.
she moved there in the night and
Did Laura get married and have children and all that stuff? Or
no, Laura Markley, no, no, no.
no?
She's back in Boston, and
Okay.
and I haven't. I think she has a boyfriend. I haven't talked to her for a while.
Sure. I just, well, we're all different, I'm
I
70,
I
so
was close. I was that close to marrying Laura Markley. Yeah, yeah, she was. Yeah, yeah. You're kind for saying that she was like one of the good looking
she was good
people.
looking and she was nice. She was a nice person, and
Yeah,
we've never connected or anything, but we knew each other. That's all. And I thought, oh, I
I
haven't
like.
thought of her in years.
I lucked out. Yeah, I got lucky there.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Uh, it's all.
Luck is 9/10 of everything in life, it seems to me now.
Yeah.
I,
So
I,
thanks to Cafe Barbar and Zeitgeist Press, I was able to meet these girls.
yeah.
So let's see. Okay, so we're running out of time here. So
Okay.
um,
Ask me whatever you want.
we've been going for a half an hour. So Zeitgeist Press, everybody should go check out the press. What's on the future for you? What's
Well, we're going to reissue Danielle Willis's Dogs and Lingerie. And we're close. We're going to add some interviews, some interviews you did. We're going to propose to Danielle. I don't know what she will decide, but we're going to propose uh, including the Miranda excerpt from her vampire novel, if she'll let us include that at the end. And we're on for that. Plus, I've got a book coming out from David Lehman's. If you know David Lehman, the Best American Poetry series he curated and created, and he has a workshop group with a fellow Paul Mickelson here, who's a friend of mine, and we have that in about to release. We're about to release a book by Rodney J. Lee called Soul Brother, and he's a African American poet and an incredible performer, Vegas based. No, he's somebody who doesn't have a national reputation, but like Andy Clausen, before he died, read his one the previous book that we done. So how is it I've never heard of this guy? He's so good, and so we still what we try to do is to publish really good material that wouldn't get out otherwise. We still are doing that. I've got books being released. Plus, we're about to do an anthology. We're working on an anthology of the Infrarealists, a dual English-Spanish anthology. It's going to include work by Roberto Bolaño. Ruben Medina who is in one of the characters in the Savage Detectives. If you know that whole genre, that's great writing. And the Infrarealists are in some ways a parallel group to the Barbarians in similar eras, but there's an Infrarealist diaspora, and they went from the 70s and 80s, spread all around the world, some excellent writers, and we're going to release that. We've got that, we're working on that book. And there's probably more that I have to look at my notes, Steve, and think about. So I'm still active. And then Andrew Romanelli, who is an excellent Las Vegas writer, and James Norman, who lives out of his van and travels all around. Right now, I think he's in Seattle, and and the two of them are publishing books on their own books and books by other poets on Zeitgeist Press, no difference. They're going to take it over and keep it all in print when I'm not doing it anymore. But right now, I'm still doing it, so we'll
okay.
see.
Well, we have to stop here. I'd like to go on for another hour, but thanks for talking to me, and
Thank you.
we'll see you at a reading, and we look forward to the books and keep going. And I love the work, man. You've done a
You
really good
too.
job. Thank you.
I love you. I love what you're doing. Thanks so much.